Rehearsal room fell silent the moment Bang Chan slammed his hand against the practice table. Then tell me why everything keeps falling apart, Hyunjin. The sharp crack echoed through the room like thunder. Felix froze, the music had stopped. The air conditioning hummed faintly overhead. Somewhere outside, rain tapped against the studio windows, but inside everything felt broken. Hyunjin stood near the mirror, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His usually calm eyes burned with anger and exhaustion. You think this is all my fault? He shot back. Bang Chan laughed bitterly. The word struck harder than anyone expected. Felix felt his throat tighten. For weeks, tension had been growing between them, missed conversations, unanswered messages, small misunderstandings piling on top of old wounds neither of them wanted to discuss. And now everything was exploding. The members standing nearby exchanged nervous glances. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, because nobody knew how. Felix stared at the floor. He hated conflict, always had. Ever since he was young, raised between different countries and different expectations, he had developed a habit of absorbing other people's pain. He smiled when others were sad, he comforted when others broke down, he carried emotions that weren't even his own. And now he felt himself drowning. Hyunjin stepped forward. You never listen. Bang Chan's jaw tightened. Listen more than anyone. Hyunjin pointed toward his own chest. You listen to everyone's problems except your own. The room became even quieter. Felix looked up. Something changed in Bang Chan's expression, only for a second, a tiny crack, a tiny fracture, then it disappeared. You don't know what you're talking about. Hyunjin shook his head. No, I know exactly what I'm talking about. Rain outside intensified, water streaked down the glass windows like tears. Felix's hands trembled. He remembered another night, months ago. Bang Chan sitting alone in the studio after midnight. Head lowered, shoulders heavy, thinking nobody could see him, thinking nobody noticed, but Felix had noticed. Because Bang Chan always carried everyone else's burden, and nobody ever carried his, not even himself. The realization hurt because Hyunjin was right. But Bang Chan wasn't wrong either. Both of them were exhausted, both of them were hurting, both of them were afraid that they were failing, afraid that they were disappointing each other. Afraid that one day the family they built together would no longer feel like home. The argument wasn't really about schedules or rehearsals or creative disagreements, those were only symptoms. The real wound was deeper, months deeper, years deeper, a wound created by silence, and silence had finally become impossible to ignore. You always think you have to handle everything alone, Hyunjin said quietly. Bang Chan looked away. And you always run away when things get difficult. The words hit their target. Hyunjin flinched, Felix's eyes widened. Neither of them apologized, neither of them could, because both statements were true. That was the worst part. Truth often hurt more than lies. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot, too suffocating. Felix wiped his eyes. He didn't realize he was crying until a tear landed on his hand. One tear, then another, then another. The argument continued, voices overlapping, frustrations spilling out after months of being trapped inside. But Felix couldn't hear the words anymore. Only emotions, only pain, only fear. His chest hurt, his vision blurred, because these weren't just teammates, they were family, and family wasn't supposed to look like this. Finally, unable to stop himself, Felix spoke. Please. His voice cracked, nobody heard him. Please stop. Still nothing. Bang Chan and Hyunjin remained locked in their own storm. Then Felix started crying openly. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough to make everyone turn. Enough to make the room freeze. Bang Chan stopped speaking. Hyunjin stopped breathing. Felix stood there, tears streaming down his face. I can't do this anymore. Silence, pure silence, the kind that feels heavier than shouting. Felix lowered his head. I hate seeing you both like this. His voice trembled. No, you're hurting. Another tear fell. No, you're both trying your best. Bang Chan's expression shattered. For the first time that day, guilt appeared in his eyes. Hyunjin looked devastated. Felix wiped his face. But more tears came. I keep pretending everything is okay. His voice became smaller, but it's not. Nobody moved, nobody interrupted, because nobody knew what to say. Felix rarely cried in front of people. When he did, it meant something was truly wrong. The rain outside softened, the room felt strangely distant, like time itself had slowed down. Bang Chan looked at Felix, then at Hyunjin, then back at Felix. And suddenly he saw what he had missed. This argument wasn't only hurting him. It wasn't only hurting Hyunjin. It was hurting everyone, especially the people who loved them most. A painful realization settled over him. Leadership wasn't just carrying burdens, sometimes it meant allowing others to help carry them. Hyunjin looked away, struggling to control his emotions. For months he had convinced himself that speaking up would only create problems, that staying silent would protect everyone. Instead, silence had created something worse: distance, misunderstanding, loneliness. The three of them stood there together, broken in different ways, yet connected by the same fear, the fear of losing each other. Bang Chan finally took a step forward. His voice was barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. Words sounded unfamiliar, heavy, real. Hyunjin looked up. For a moment neither spoke. Years of friendship lived inside that silence, years of trust, years of memories. Then Hyunjin nodded, his own eyes glistening. I'm sorry too. Felix covered his mouth, fresh tears filled his eyes. But these tears felt different, softer, warmer, the kind that arrived when pain finally started healing. Nobody rushed to fix everything. Nobody pretended the wounds were gone, because healing wasn't a miracle, it was a choice, a difficult one, a daily one. But for the first time in a long while they were willing to make that choice together. Outside, the rain finally stopped. A faint evening light pushed through the clouds. The practice room remained quiet, not because there was nothing left to say, but because some emotions didn't need words anymore. And standing there beneath the fading storm, Felix realized something important. Family wasn't about never breaking. Family was about staying even after the breaking happened. And sometimes that was enough. The next morning the building felt unusually quiet, not physically. People still walked through hallways, managers still answered phone calls, staff still hurried from room to room carrying schedules and coffee cups. But for Felix everything sounded distant, as if he were underwater. He sat alone near the large studio window, watching pale sunlight spread across the city skyline. Usually mornings energized him. Usually he would joke with the members, smile, laugh, tease someone about being late. Today he simply stared outside. The memories from yesterday refused to leave. Bang Chan's anger, Hyunjin's frustration, the helpless feeling in his own chest, the tears, especially the tears. Felix hated crying in front of people, not because he was embarrassed, but because he knew what happened afterward. Everyone worried, everyone blamed themselves, and Felix never wanted to become another burden. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. He turned. Bang Chan stood at the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. Well, 1 coffee, 1 hot chocolate, because Bang Chan knew Felix hated bitter coffee. A small smile appeared on Felix's face, only a small one, but it was enough. Bang Chan walked inside, neither spoke immediately. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was simply honest. Eventually Bang Chan placed the drink beside him. You didn't sleep much. It wasn't a question, Felix laughed weakly. Neither did you. Bang Chan rubbed the back of his neck, a habit he always had whenever something weighed heavily on his mind. For a while they watched the city together, then Bang Chan sighed. I scared you yesterday. Felix remained quiet because denying it would be a lie. Bang Chan lowered his eyes. I never wanted that. Guilt in his voice felt real, raw, unfiltered. Felix looked at him. For the first time Bang Chan looked tired, not physically, emotionally, like someone carrying a backpack filled with stones. Every responsibility, every expectation, every fear, all stacked on top of each other, and eventually even the strongest people began to bend. You don't have to carry everything alone. The words slipped out naturally. Bang Chan laughed softly. Sound exactly like Hyunjin. Comments surprised both of them, then something unexpected happened. They smiled just a little, just enough. The tension loosened for a moment, until the door opened again. Hyunjin entered, and the atmosphere immediately changed. Not hostile, not angry, just fragile, like thin glass that could crack if touched too hard. Hyunjin stopped when he noticed Bang Chan. Bang Chan stopped smiling. Felix's stomach tightened. The wounds were still there, the apologies from yesterday had been real, but apologies didn't erase pain overnight. Nobody knew what to say. Seconds stretched into eternity, then Hyunjin quietly placed a folder on the table. These are the revisions. Bang Chan nodded. Thanks. That was it, no argument, no confrontation. No shouting, yet somehow it felt worse, because distance had replaced anger, and distance could be even more dangerous. Felix felt the familiar pressure returning, the same pressure he had carried for months, the need to fix everything, the need to make everyone okay, the need to protect the people he loved. But another voice whispered inside him. What about yourself? The thought caught him off guard, because he never asked himself that question, not really. Everyone always talked about Bang Chan's burdens, or Hyunjin's struggles, or another member's worries, rarely Felix's, rarely his own. The realization followed him throughout the day, through rehearsals, through meetings, through lunch, even through laughter, especially through laughter, because sometimes laughter hid things better than tears. That evening the group gathered for practice. The music blasted through the speakers, movements synchronized, footsteps echoed across the floor. Everything appeared normal, professional, polished. But Felix noticed details nobody else seemed to see. Bang Chan checking Hyunjin's side of the room before speaking, Hyunjin avoiding eye contact whenever possible. Conversations becoming shorter, smiles becoming forced. The cracks remained. Halfway through rehearsal, Bang Chan paused the music. Everyone stopped. Sweat glistened beneath the bright studio lights. Breathing filled the room. Then Bang Chan spoke. We need to talk. Immediately Felix felt nervous, so did everyone else. Bang Chan looked at the floor for a second, collecting courage, then he looked up. I think I've been pretending I'm okay for too long. Nobody expected that, least of all Felix. Bang Chan wasn't the type to openly admit weakness, not because he lacked emotions, but because he felt responsible for everyone. The room remained silent, listening, really listening. I keep telling myself I can handle everything. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't, and when I can't, I get frustrated. Nobody interrupted, nobody looked away, because this wasn't leader Bang Chan speaking. This was simply Chan, a person, a friend, someone tired of being strong every second of every day. Felix felt his chest tighten. Hyunjin looked equally emotional, then Bang Chan turned toward him. Directly, the room seemed to stop moving. I should have listened better. The words landed heavily. Hyunjin's eyes widened. Bang Chan continued. I was so busy trying to solve problems that I forgot to understand them. A painful silence followed. Hyunjin swallowed hard. For a long moment he couldn't respond, then finally, I wasn't honest either. His voice shook slightly. I kept things inside because I thought nobody would understand. Confession felt just as heavy. Both truths hung in the air together, neither cancelling the other, neither winning, because this wasn't about winning, it never had been. Felix watched them, really watched them, and suddenly he understood something. The strongest relationships weren't built on perfect communication. They were built on surviving imperfect communication, on choosing each other despite misunderstandings, despite mistakes, despite hurt. The practice room felt brighter, some warmer, human, and for the first time in months, Felix felt hope, real hope, not the fragile kind, not the kind created by pretending, the genuine kind, the kind born from truth. The rehearsal ended later than usual. As everyone packed their bags, Felix noticed something that made his heart lighter. Bang Chan and Hyunjin were talking, not much, not deeply, but talking, small conversations, tiny steps, tiny bridges, and sometimes tiny bridges were enough to cross enormous distances. Walking out of the building together, Felix looked toward the night sky. The clouds had disappeared, stars shone faintly above the city lights. For the first time in a long while, his chest didn't feel quite so heavy. The wounds were still healing. The fears hadn't vanished, the future remained uncertain. But somewhere between yesterday's tears and today's honesty, something important had returned. Trust. And trust, Felix realized, was where every healing journey truly began.
3 days passed. On the surface, everything seemed better. Schedules continued. Rehearsals resumed. The members laughed together again. Fans watching from the outside would never notice anything unusual, but Felix knew better. Healing had begun. Yet healing was not the same as being healed. The invisible cracks were still there, hidden beneath smiles, hidden beneath routine, hidden beneath the familiar rhythm of their daily lives. And sometimes the most dangerous wounds were the ones nobody could see. That evening, the company building was almost empty. Most employees had already gone home. The hallways felt strangely quiet. Only the distant hum of fluorescent lights filled the air. Felix had returned to the practice room after dinner. He wanted to rehearse alone for a while. Whenever his thoughts became too loud, dancing helped. Movement gave shape to emotions words couldn't explain. The music echoed softly around him. His reflection moved across the giant mirrors. Step, turn, breathe. Again, again. Again until sweat covered his forehead, until his muscles burned, until he could finally stop thinking, or at least pretend to. Then he noticed something. A light crossed the hallway inside one of the smaller studios. At this hour, nobody should have been there. Curious, Felix lowered the music and stepped outside. The corridor stretched silently before him. The closer he got, the clearer the sound became. A piano. Someone was playing, slowly, carefully, as if every note carried weight. Felix recognized the melody immediately. Bang Chan. Only Chan played like that, not perfectly, not mechanically, emotionally, like he was speaking through music. Felix hesitated before opening the door slightly. Inside, Bang Chan sat alone at the piano. The room was dimly lit. Only one lamp illuminated the corner. His shoulders looked tense, his movements slower than usual. The melody continued, beautiful, melancholic, lonely. Felix remained silent, watching, listening. Then he noticed something that made his heart sink. A notebook lay open beside the piano, filled with crossed-out lyrics, dozens of them, entire pages scratched out, discarded, rejected. The sight felt familiar, too familiar. Perfectionism, self-doubt, the invisible enemies Bang Chan fought every day. The song ended. The silence afterward felt heavy. Then Bang Chan quietly buried his face in his hands. Felix froze. His chest tightened, because he understood immediately. Chan wasn't composing, he was struggling. And nobody had noticed, not even him. For several seconds the room remained still, then Felix gently pushed the door open. Bang Chan looked up quickly, surprised, almost embarrassed. Oh, a weak smile appeared. Didn't know anyone was here. Felix stepped closer, neither mentioned the notebook, neither mentioned the expression Chan had worn moments earlier, but both understood some things didn't require explanation. You okay? The question escaped naturally. Bang Chan stared at the piano keys. For a while he didn't answer, then he laughed softly, a tired laugh, the kind people used when they didn't know what else to do. Nodded. Bang Chan looked down. I don't know. Honesty hurt because it was real. Felix sat beside him for several moments, neither spoke. The city lights outside shimmered through the windows, tiny stars trapped inside glass skyscrapers, beautiful, distant, untouchable. Finally Bang Chan exhaled slowly. Everyone thinks leaders know what they're doing. His voice was quiet. They don't. Felix listened. Keep making mistakes. Another pause. I keep wondering if I'm enough. Confession lingered in the air, heavy, painful, human. Felix remembered something years ago, before debut, before sold-out arenas, before fame, before expectations. There had simply been a group of young people chasing impossible dreams together. Back then they relied on each other for everything. Maybe somewhere along the way they forgot that. Maybe somewhere along the way Bang Chan stopped allowing himself to lean on others. And maybe that loneliness had slowly grown inside him. Felix turned toward him. "You don't have to be perfect." Chan smiled sadly. "I know," but his eyes suggested otherwise. The conversation ended there, not because it was finished, but because some battles couldn't be solved in a single night. Some truths required time. When Felix finally returned home, sleep refused to come. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking. Remembering, worrying, the image of Bang Chan alone at the piano replayed repeatedly in his mind. And another realization began forming, one that frightened him. Everyone had been focused on repairing the relationship between Bang Chan and Hyunjin. Everyone had been focused on fixing the visible conflict. But nobody had asked a different question. What caused it in the first place? What had pushed them toward that breaking point? The more Felix thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Because arguments like that didn't appear overnight. Something deeper had been happening, something hidden, something unresolved, and he wasn't sure anyone truly understood it yet. The next afternoon, another rehearsal began. The atmosphere felt lighter than before. At first, music filled the room, choreography flowed smoothly. Laughter occasionally broke out between members. Everything seemed normal, until Hyunjin missed a movement, a small mistake, nothing serious. Normally nobody would care. But Felix noticed Bang Chan's reaction immediately, just a fraction of a second. A flash of concern, then guilt, then silence. The same happened when Chan made a mistake later. Hyunjin looked over, concern, guilt, silence. The realization hit Felix hard. Both of them were walking on eggshells, afraid of hurting each other again, afraid of reopening old wounds, afraid of speaking honestly. And fear was creating a new distance, a quieter one, a more dangerous one. After practice ended, Felix found himself standing alone in the hallway, thinking. The building gradually emptied around him, doors closed, footsteps faded, night settled beyond the windows, then a voice interrupted his thoughts. Worried, Felix turned. Hyunjin stood there, hands in his pockets, expression unusually serious. Felix hesitated, then nodded. A faint smile appeared on Hyunjin's face. "Told you," Felix laughed softly. "It that obvious?" "A little." The smile disappeared. Hyunjin looked toward the darkened practice room, then toward the city lights beyond the glass. For a moment he seemed unsure whether to speak. Then finally, "I don't think Chan believes me." Felix blinked. "What?" Hyunjin lowered his eyes. "I think he forgave me." A pause, "But I don't think he believes me." The confession landed heavily because Felix suddenly understood. The argument had ended, the apologies had happened, but trust wasn't fully repaired, not yet. And perhaps that was why both of them still seemed lost. Not angry, not distant, just uncertain. Standing there beneath the dim hallway lights, Felix felt a familiar ache return to his chest, not because things were broken, but because they were fragile. And fragile things required care, patience, honesty. Time, far more time than anyone wanted. As the night deepened around them, Felix stared through the window at the sleeping city. Thousands of lights stretched across the darkness, some bright, some fading, some barely visible at all. And for the first time since the argument, a difficult thought entered his mind. Maybe the real challenge wasn't bringing Bang Chan and Hyunjin back together. Maybe the real challenge was helping them trust each other again. And Felix wasn't sure where that journey would lead any of them. The following week arrived faster than anyone expected. Schedules became busier, interviews, dance rehearsals, recording sessions, meetings that stretched late into the evening. The members barely had time to breathe, yet despite the packed days, Felix couldn't stop thinking about what Hyunjin had said. "I think he forgave me, but I don't think he believes me." The sentence lingered in his mind like a song that refused to end. At first, Felix told himself he was overthinking. Maybe things simply needed time. Maybe healing was happening more slowly than he wanted. But the more he observed, the more he noticed it. Small things, tiny moments, the kind most people would miss. Bang Chan and Hyunjin spoke politely, worked professionally, laughed occasionally. But there was caution now, an invisible wall neither seemed able to cross. And the wall was exhausting both of them. One rainy evening, the group remained at the company longer than usual. Most of the members had already left for dinner. Only a few stayed behind. Felix wandered through the hallway carrying a bottle of water. The building felt quieter than normal. Outside, rain tapped steadily against the windows. The sky had turned almost black. As he passed one of the recording studios, he heard voices, not angry voices, not shouting, just conversation. Instinctively, he stopped. Inside the partially open room sat Bang Chan and Hyunjin, alone. For a second, Felix considered walking away. Then he heard Chan speak, and something in his voice made Felix stay. "Been trying." Silence followed. Hyunjin looked down at the table. "I know." Bang Chan rubbed his forehead, a familiar gesture, one Felix had seen hundreds of times whenever stress overwhelmed him. "No," his voice sounded tired. "I mean really trying." Rain outside intensified, water streaked down the glass. The room felt distant and intimate at the same time. Hyunjin remained quiet. Listening, waiting, Bang Chan stared at the floor, and for the first time in a very long while he looked vulnerable, not like a leader, not like someone responsible for an entire team, just a person carrying too much. Keep thinking about that day. Confession hung in the air. Argument. Hyunjin's expression softened. Bang Chan continued. I keep replaying everything. His voice lowered. Every word. A painful silence followed, then he laughed softly, not because anything was funny. Because sometimes people laughed when the truth hurt. I said things I can't take back. Hyunjin's eyes flickered. So did I. Chan shook his head. Still, his jaw tightened. I should have known better. The room became quiet again, the kind of quiet that carried years of friendship inside it, years of trust, years of memories, years of unspoken understanding. Then Hyunjin finally spoke. You know what hurt the most? Bang Chan looked up. For a second neither moved, neither breathed, neither looked away. Then Hyunjin answered his own question. It wasn't the argument. Words surprised both Felix and Bang Chan. Hyunjin's voice remained calm. It was realizing we'd stopped talking honestly long before that day. Statement struck like lightning because it was true, painfully true. The argument had only been the explosion. The real damage had happened much earlier, slowly, quietly, over months. Conversations replaced by assumptions, honesty replaced by silence, trust replaced by guessing what the other person felt. Bang Chan lowered his gaze. For a long moment he said nothing, then he nodded, a small movement, yet somehow heavier than words. I know. Hyunjin looked away toward the rain-covered window. I missed you. Confession barely rose above a whisper, but it filled the room completely. Felix felt his chest tighten, because suddenly everything became clear. This had never been about anger, never about blame, never about who was right or wrong. It was about distance, and the fear created by distance. Bang Chan stared at him. His eyes widened slightly, as if hearing something he never expected. Then he smiled, a real smile, small, fragile, but real. I missed you too. Silence afterward felt different, lighter, warmer, the kind of silence shared between people finally telling the truth. Felix quietly stepped away from the door. He didn't want to interrupt, didn't want them to know he had overheard, because that conversation belonged to them, not him. As he walked down the hallway, something inside his chest loosened. For the first time in weeks, hope felt stronger than fear. Yet that feeling didn't last long, because later that night something happened, something unexpected, something nobody saw coming. The group gathered for one final rehearsal before heading home. Everyone appeared tired. The long schedules were beginning to catch up with them. Even Felix felt exhausted. The music started. The choreography began. Everything proceeded normally. Until midway through a routine, Felix suddenly lost his balance. The room spun. His vision blurred. The music became distant. Muffled, like it was underwater, he tried to keep dancing, tried to take another step, but his legs refused. A sharp dizziness hit him, then darkness. The next thing he heard was someone calling his name, voices, multiple voices, concerned voices, panicked voices. The world slowly returned. The bright ceiling lights above him came into focus. Felix blinked, confused, disoriented. A pounding headache throbbed behind his eyes. Felix, Bang Chan's voice, close. Very close. Felix turned slightly. Bang Chan knelt beside him. Hyunjin was there too, looking equally terrified. The other members surrounded them. Nobody was smiling anymore. Nobody looked calm. The fear on their faces hit Felix harder than the dizziness. I'm okay. His voice sounded weak. Nobody believed him, especially not Bang Chan. The leader's face had gone pale. What do you mean you're okay? The words came out sharper than intended. Fear disguised as frustration. Felix recognized it immediately. Because he had heard that tone before, from people terrified of losing someone important. A manager hurried into the room. Questions followed. Water, medical checks, concern, far more than Felix expected. As he sat there trying to recover, he noticed something strange. Bang Chan and Hyunjin had stopped thinking about their own problems entirely. Both remained beside him, watching, waiting, worried. For the first time in weeks, the invisible wall between them seemed gone. Not because their issues were solved, but because something more important had reminded them of what truly mattered, each other. And as Felix looked between them, still trying to steady his breathing, a realization slowly settled over him. Sometimes people become so focused on fixing broken relationships that they forget the relationship itself is still there, still alive, still worth protecting. And perhaps that was what this difficult journey had been trying to teach all of them from the very beginning. Not perfection, not certainty, not even agreement, just the courage to stay beside one another when things became difficult. And for the first time in a long while, Felix believed they might finally be learning how.
Several days after the incident, life gradually returned to normal. At least that was what everyone said. The schedules resumed, the rehearsals continued, the cameras returned, the smiles returned, but something had changed, something important. The members noticed it first, then the staff, then even the fans watching from afar began to feel it. The atmosphere was different, lighter, warmer, more honest, not because all problems had disappeared, not because everyone suddenly became perfect, but because nobody was pretending anymore. For the first time in a long while, they were speaking before their frustrations became silence, listening before assumptions became arguments, trusting before fear could create distance. And it all started with a conversation nobody had wanted to have, One evening, after finishing a long rehearsal, the members remained inside the practice room. Nobody seemed eager to leave. The city lights shimmered outside the large windows. The night felt peaceful. The kind of peace that arrives only after surviving a storm. Felix sat on the floor stretching tired muscles. Across the room, Hyunjin was laughing at something Seungmin had said. Bang Chan leaned against the wall, watching everyone with a small smile. For a moment, Felix simply observed the room, the voices, the familiar faces, his family. And suddenly he remembered the day everything had fallen apart, the shouting, the accusations, the tears he couldn't stop. Back then he had truly believed something precious was breaking forever, but now he understood. Sometimes relationships don't break because of conflict. Sometimes they grow because of it, provided people choose honesty over pride, provided they choose understanding over blame. The realization settled softly in his heart. A few minutes later, the other members left one by one until only 3 people remained: Felix, Bang Chan, Hyunjin. The same 3 people who had carried the heaviest emotions during those difficult weeks. The room became quiet, not awkward, not tense, comfortable, the kind of silence shared between people who no longer need to hide. Hyunjin looked out the window, then suddenly laughed, a genuine laugh. "Can you believe how dramatic everything became?" Felix groaned immediately. "Oh, don't remind me." Bang Chan covered his face. "I would happily erase that month from my memory." 3 of them laughed, real laughter. The kind that only comes after surviving something painful together. Then the laughter faded, and a softer moment followed. Bang Chan looked at Felix, his expression becoming serious. "There's something I've wanted to say." Felix blinked. "What?" Bang Chan hesitated. For once the words didn't come easily, then he spoke. "Thank you." Room fell silent. Felix stared at him, confused. "For what?" Bang Chan smiled. "For being brave enough to cry." Answer caught him completely off guard. Hyunjin nodded immediately. "He's right." Felix looked away, embarrassed, but neither allowed him to escape. Bang Chan continued. "If you hadn't spoken that day," his voice softened, "I don't know how long we would have kept hurting each other." Hyunjin lowered his eyes. "Maybe even longer than we already did." Felix felt emotion rising in his chest again, not painful this time, just overwhelming, because he never considered himself brave. He cried because he couldn't hold it in anymore, that was all. Yet somehow those tears had forced everyone to face truths they had been avoiding. And maybe vulnerability wasn't weakness after all. Maybe it was courage in its own form, the strongest courage, the courage to be seen. The 3 sat together for a while longer, watching the city below, watching cars move like tiny streams of light through the darkness. Then Bang Chan suddenly stood. He walked toward the center of the room, turned around and smiled. A familiar smile. The one that always appeared when he felt hopeful about the future. "We're okay." Words were simple, yet they carried enormous weight. Hyunjin smiled back. "Yeah." Felix felt his eyes sting slightly, not with sadness, with relief, because for the first time in months he believed those words. They were okay, not perfect, not flawless, not free from future misunderstandings, but okay, and maybe that was enough. As they prepared to leave, Felix paused near the doorway and looked back one last time. The practice room was empty now, quiet, peaceful, the same room where tears had fallen, where painful truths had been spoken, where friendships had nearly fractured under the weight of unspoken emotions. And yet it was also the room where healing began. A strange thought crossed his mind. The hardest moments of life often become the moments that teach us who truly matters, not when everything is easy, not when everyone is smiling, but when things become difficult, when emotions spill over, when misunderstandings hurt, when staying becomes harder than leaving. That was when love revealed itself, not romantic love, something deeper, the love found in friendship, trust, family, the kind that remains even after disappointment, even after arguments, even after tears. Outside, the night air felt cool against his skin. The city stretched endlessly before them, bright, alive, full of unknown tomorrows. Felix walked beside Bang Chan and Hyunjin, their footsteps echoing together beneath the lights. No one rushed ahead, no one walked behind. For the first time in a long while they moved forward side by side, and as they disappeared into the night, carrying both old scars and new understanding, Felix realized something he would never forget. The argument had never been the end of their story. It had been the chapter that taught them how much they truly meant to one another. And sometimes the people who cry the most are not the weakest in the room. Sometimes they are simply the ones brave enough to remind everyone else what is worth saving. The night swallowed their laughter as they walked away together, not as people who had never been hurt, but as people who had chosen each other despite the hurt, and that choice made all the difference. The end.